All right, boys and girls, happy Sunday. I'm going to run through why the setups on Friday's session actually were ones that you should have avoided or at least given less weight to. Today's a little bit different. This is going to be a what not to do or things you can look for on the volume profile that can help you avoid bad trades, okay? Because on the New York session on Friday, it was a lot more difficult than the days before. Almost all week last week, these overnight levels are hitting perfectly, right? And if we put them on the chart right now, you're going to say, what the shit? These levels aren't working at all today. And the reason why, this is why I say the developing profile is the secret sauce, okay? The developing profile is going to show you basically what is a good area to trade and what is a not so good area to trade. And every single time the market came through and approached these value levels, the developing profile showed why we shouldn't take that trade. So a little bit different today, a little bit different. I didn't personally see any A-rank trades for the New York session on Friday. There were plenty of good B-rank trades, but we'll save that for later. Today is what not to do and how to avoid getting stopped out using the developing profile. So if you can see just at a glance, overnight value high, overnight point of control, overnight value low, there's the three overnight levels. The previous day New York levels are all the way up here. I haven't even extended them, right? There weren't even any relevance in the New York session on Friday because it was so far away. So here's what we were working with on Friday. Now, as you can see, the market chopped through the bottom one, chopped back up to the upside, came up, almost got, this was your B rank trade up here, which we'll run through in a second, came back down, broke through overnight point of control, small reaction, broke through again, small reaction, broke up, then a little reaction up here. Not going to run through every single one, but you can see it just wasn't as clean as normal. Nice clean bounce here towards the end of the day, but that's about it. And every single one of these trades, there was a clue on the developing profile. Okay, so obviously, if we go right off the bat, all right, we start off your developing profile. Imagine you're coming right into the New York session, all right, starting that at 9:30. And right off the bat, like we say, give the profile at least half an hour to develop. You're not going to see anything on this profile until about 30 minutes into the session, all right? So that immediately discounts those first two cuts through, right? If you're not just trading the level on its own, you want actual extra profile confirmation, those immediately get avoided, these two losses. All right, so come through. Now, coming up to the overnight point of control, what does the profile look like? Well, we come up here and there's absolutely nothing there, okay? It's not put in any sort of confirmation that that is a good trade to take. In fact, what we see, and I break this down inside the school, but when you're anticipating a breakout, you're seeing volume starting to build right up against that resistance level. It builds that volume and eventually you get your breakout. If you're expecting a breakout, you want to see that volume build on the profile for a breakout. So there was a little bit of a clue there to actually trade through this level versus fading it, which is what you'd normally do from the underside. All right, so the market had put in this sort of volume up here, put in a point of control. It failed below the point of control. It pulled back up. And when you get a breakaway, a fail from point of control, that's normally a pretty decent trade to take. So it pulled back up towards that point of control developing and tapped the developing value high, right where that volume fades out. So seeing as that point of control failed, it's pulling back to a premium level, almost in line with the overnight value high. Getting short across the developing value high there is not a bad trade at all. A B rank trade, I'd be wanting to get out of that at the overnight point of control though, so not a huge trade. Well, still 583 ticks, but you know, you get the idea. Stop loss behind the overnight value high, so let's go about 150 ticks, right? And then, yep, targeting the overnight point of control. So that was not a bad trade. That's about a B rank trade, not an A grade, but a B rank trade using the developing profile for confirmation. It's the closest thing we got to confirming a good trade for this New York session. All right, and then it comes across overnight point of control, or even here as it breaks to the underside, you're not seeing anything on the profile to confirm you getting short on the underside. So see how the developing profile really helps you filter out bad trades. You're not just going to long and short these levels without the developing profile telling you a bit of a story. On the profile here, we're seeing no high volume node reinforcement along that level. We're not really getting anything to tell us that we should be shorting the underside retest of this because there's nothing on the profile to confirm that. We are getting something somewhat to confirm a long and break through this level. All the volumes up here, kind of like an even distribution. If you're inside the school group, you know exactly what that means. An even distribution, and then longing the lows of that even distribution is an okay trade, right? It's about a B rank trade. Even distribution, lows plus the developing value low in this area. That's a B rank trade. Plenty of good B rank trades on Friday, but no A ranks. All right, but nothing telling you that you should short the underside of this. It's all saying up. Okay, now what about here when it approaches the overnight value high? You have similar confluences to before when we highlighted this short idea here, but this time there's something in this profile that's telling you that shorting here, yes, might work, but it's not the greatest idea. And if you know volume profile, you know exactly what I'm looking at here. Is that yes, it's a valid area to short, overnight value high, developing value high, right across the two levels. It's a good premium zone to sell. You did get that reaction. But I always tell people, if there's something in the way of your trade, this is still a trade you could take. But you never want to be trying to short through a massive distribution of volume. And what do you see here? The market had put in a huge volume concentration right across here. Look on the profile, right? Big shelf, okay? A big shelf of volume right across here. We'd broken above that. We're now trading above that big shelf of volume. We put in a little acceptance above those highs. So if you're trying to short from here, at absolute most, you want to be shorting into the edge of that volume shelf and no more. Because if you try to short through that volume node, even to POC, look at the strength of the volume across here. That's a not very favorable trade. So at best, you can go for a 1-to-1 from here, but that's not a great quality trade, okay? It still would have worked out. You almost would have got stopped out at a 1-to-1, but not a great quality trade because you're shorting into volume. So that is a trade that I personally would avoid. And again, that shows the power of the developing profile, helping you filter out bad trades. All right, let's pull the profile across now. All right, here's where you could argue that maybe this would have been a fair trade setup, but it would have been a stop out. Okay, you had that high volume shelf develop across the overnight value high. It had broken to the upside, pull back. Normally you might get a pretty good reaction at a high volume node developed across a value high or a value level. And unfortunately, the market just ran down and ended up stopping out and ran all the way back down to overnight point of control, right, where it did end up getting a bounce, a clean bounce before the session closed. So out of all those volume profile, all those setups that showed using the developing profile and the overnight value levels, there was only one that was a fake out, which was the trade up here. All the other trades were invalidated by the developing profile, showing it's not a good idea to take, or were confirmed by the developing profile, letting you get a good B rank trade a few times throughout the New York session. But that really shows the developing profile's power, boys and girls. This is why I say, people ask me, can you really just trade the levels on their own? Yes, you can. And a lot of the time, the levels on their own will give good reactions. And, if you can read context well, those levels alone can be pretty powerful. But you add the developing profile in, you learn how to read the context around developing profile and learn how to use a developing profile to tell the story of what the market and the auction is doing now. You can really easily filter out bad trades and confirm better trades. The secret sauce is in the developing profile. And, if I had to choose, if I had gun to my head, you can only choose one profile to use. If I had to remove all my other profiles, I would only use a developing profile, gun to my head, because the developing profiles tells the story of what the market is doing right now relative to yesterday's value, last week's value, overnight value, etc. And using the developing profile alone, you can get a lot of good trades, even if you had nothing else on your chart. If you enjoyed that and found it helpful, come join us inside the school community. I'll link that in the comments below. Our live trading session for Asia will be happening in about 40 minutes after I post this video here on YouTube. From this week forward, we're doing all the sessions scattered throughout the week. So Sunday, Monday is Asia, Tuesday is London, Wednesday is New York, Thursday is our live group coaching session. So come join inside. We've had a bunch of new members join, 254 people in here now, adding some wins to this wall of motivation as well. So it's going good, boys and girls. I hope to see you inside. Otherwise, I'll see you again tomorrow on the Daily Updates channel.